Following video is brought to you by BSEN, Boston Sports Entertainment Network. Please subscribe, hit that like button, and as always, leave a comment, and thank you for enjoying the video.
I got the Boston Celtics going to the final.
I got them winning without.
It's time to represent your city. Put your hands up. Cali, you know we do it for Boston. Hey, ain't nobody gonna like Boston. Yeah, hey, ain't nobody do it like Boston. Where the legends get made, where the banners get raised, bright lights, big stage. Boston. All the fire we bring in a city full of rings, it's a beautiful thing out in Boston. And you ain't hard like that, you don't put it on the line with your squad like that. That's right, Boston. All we do is win like cigars in the gym, and we at it again to say, Beantown, what's up? What's up? 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 Feel the energy shift, now we jumping at the gym. Represent, showing out how we ball above the rim. Larry Legend, 86, to the truth in '08. Cement your name with the all-time greats. Tomato 18 in the Raptors. Celtic green, only green that matters. It's about that time. Ain't another city that's louder than mine. Always gonna shine with the game on the line. What you think was gonna happen, man? That's how we do it in Boston. Ain't nobody gonna like Boston. Yeah. Ain't nobody do it like Boston.
Welcome back to another episode of the Dynasty Proud podcast, episode 11, the Kyrie Irving episode, brought to you by the Boston Sports Entertainment Network. My name is Jason. His name is Alex. What's going on, Alex?
Another day, Jason. Another day to be happy to be a Celtics fan. Top of the standings.
Celtics they're rolling right now. They just clinched a playoff berth against the Suns last night. Obviously, huge win for them. Coming off a massive road trip. You have any thoughts on last night's Suns games? Did you take anything away? Just give me your thoughts on that.
I mean, since we're doing the rest Porzingis thing already, it's nice to see them just dominate the way that they did in both Suns matchups. And as I posted on X last night, this would be such a dream finals opponent for me. I mean, I don't think the Suns are getting out of the West. They do have the talent to do it. I don't think they will. But I mean, from the elite shot makers on both sides, the high-end talent that you'd have, and I think the relative ease in which the Celtics would win that series, that would just be such a dream opponent. Something about Kevin Durant just brings out the best in Tatum, and then Jaylen Brown last night as well. But I mean, that'd be a matchup I would love to see. But they looked great last night. The game never seemed in doubt. You know, the Suns made their little run, but the bench stepped it up. Jaylen took over in the second half, even when Tatum wasn't as involved. And then, I mean, you look at this team right now, even this team as is without Porzingis, which are 17-3 this year. So they're basically last year's team minus Malcolm Brogdon, but with an improved point guard with Jrue Holiday over Marcus Smart. I think this team still could win the championship without Porzingis. I think with Porzingis, they become a cheat code. And, you know, injuries aside, I think they should win the championship. So it's encouraging all around. I love what I'm seeing. And we can get into the ramifications of this going forward over the final month.
Yeah. So, I mean, last night, you know, when you see the Suns, right, you look at a team that has, you know, 4 All-Stars and Durant, Booker, Beal, and who else they got? I mean, Allen to a degree could be, but it's mainly Durant, Beal, and Booker. They have Royce O'Neal that comes off the bench, who did play valuable minutes for them, I believe, the first time the Celtics played them, but now, like, he averages maybe like 27 minutes. But for the Celtics, you know, there's been some talk about Tatum slipping, especially coming off this road trip. So it was nice to see him score 26 last night. But Jaylen Brown has been a force. And I think what you're seeing out of the Celtics squad is, even though they're down KP, Jaylen Brown is elevating his game. And I think in the long run, especially in the playoffs, that is going to help them a ton, because Jaylen Brown needs to be a factor one way or another, with or without KP. But I definitely think last night we saw what could come towards the playoffs for Jaylen Brown.
He's been a top 5 to 10 player since the All-Star break. In the 11 games since it, he's been a force. He's almost looked like the Celtics' best player during that time. And I know a lot of people like to try to compare Tatum and Brown. You know, we're lucky to have both. We're lucky to have this entire roster. But having, you know, on any given night where maybe Tatum doesn't have it, that Jaylen can carry the offense. Then you have Jrue, you have Derek White, you have Porzingis if he's playing. So there's just so much talent on this team that it doesn't need to be Tatum doing it by himself. You know, he doesn't have to have those Luka Doncic, you know, despite the loss type nights where he puts up 40 plus points, but they lose the game. People that just watch the box scores that aren't really, like, real fans, like, oh, well, Luka had 42 and Tatum only had 32, so he's the better player. Meanwhile, Luka's team lost by 20 and Tatum's won by 20. So I'd rather win. This team, they're unselfish. They make the right play. They pass the ball around. They're going to find the best look every single time. You don't need Tatum isolation. Like, yeah, he can do it. He can still, like, when he decides he wants to drive to the hole at the level that Jalen does, he's just as unstoppable, even if he's not getting the whistles that he probably should get on those. But yeah, I mean, I can't see anybody beating them. Like, when they're playing like this, like last night, and it's just the ways that they can score, the ways they can win. I know Charles Barkley and Skip Bayless and all the talking media heads. Well, if their threes aren't falling, it's like, yeah, you may have a game like that. They can win in ugly ways too. They've won games where they've hit. I think there's one game they only hit like 4 or 5 threes the whole game. They still won. Like, their low post game has improved. They're taking the best looks. And it's like, yeah, they may have a game in that series where they're not shooting well. Maybe even it's a game where it's too much to overcome. But you got to do that 4 times in a series. They're not going to have 4 of those nights in a series. And even if they somehow did, they can win in other ways. So, especially in the East, I can't see anybody hanging with them.
So I do, and looking at the box score, I actually want to give 2 people props that I didn't think maybe would have a huge impact. But I think when you're down a guy like Porzingis, these 2 guys have stepped up a ton, and that's Xavier Tillman and Luke Cornett. Tillman brings like this elevated, like, toughness presence on defense, and he can actually shoot the 3 too. I know he only went 1 for 3 last night, but he's been a guy that I think when we acquired him at the trade deadline, we didn't think he would be a huge impact guy. Maybe he comes in when the Celtics are blowing out another team. We thought maybe he was going to be the guy that would play when Porzingis is hurt, or if they're going to give him rest down the stretch, which they are right now because of KP's injury. But I think this team is deeper than a lot of people have stated. They keep saying, oh, they're a top 6 team because they got only 6 good players and the bench sucks. They have right now, with Hauser and Tillman and Brissett and Cornett and Pritchard coming off the bench, it's not a half bad bench. So when you look at it at the whole grand scheme of things, the Celtics are a full, complete team, and they can afford to rest, or if they want to fake an injury here or there to get to the playoffs, I'm perfectly fine with that. But I do want to roll into obviously KP has missed, I believe last night was his 4th straight game that he's missed with that hamstring issue. Do you think it's anything that we have to be worried about down the stretch, or do you just think the Celtics are being overly, protective with him coming down the stretch here?
It's definitely the latter. You even saw videos of him online. Like, he's completely fine. Like, if they're 1 game ahead for the 1 seed right now, he would be playing most of these games. Like, there's no need to. Like, I get the rest versus rust thing, but like the risk reward. Like, Porzingis plays in these games right now and he gets hurt. People are like, well, why is he out there? It's like, I get it. Like, he's gonna have to be healthy for this playoff run. But the luxury that we have being so far ahead at this point in the season is we are able to to give him games off. Like, yeah, I think he'll play against Milwaukee. We have a back-to-back coming up Sunday, Monday. I can guarantee he's missing at least one of those. You don't need to overexert Porzingis, because Porzingis being healthy for a playoff run is the difference between us, winning the championship, and us, being on a more level playing field. So I have no problem giving him these days off. The only thing you can worry about is obviously like conditioning. Give him all this time off, and then you go right into a playoff road. But as far as like the depth on the bench, playoff rotations are not 11 deep. So when people are talking about like, oh, they aren't deep, we have very serviceable bench players. But outside of our top 6, who do you think really going to get big minutes? I think Pritchard will. He'll handle a lot of like the backup point guard responsibilities. Hauser, especially if he's hitting his shot, will play. And then, you look at like a Tillman or a Cornett, they can come in for a few minutes and spare you. If the way that Cornett's played the last 2 games, like, what more could you expect from a 3rd-string center? Like, he's been amazing. Then Al hitting 6 threes last night, turning back the clock. Of the 2007 draft class, the only 2 players still in the league are Al Horford and Kevin Durant. And Al Horford actually outscored KD last night, which is incredible. So, you just look at this team, it's incredible. Like, you're going to have heavy minutes on your top of your rotation, but like those guys that can come in, like, I feel comfortable with Pritchard this year. Like, I feel comfortable with Hauser, not just to hit his shots, but to be able to hold his own on defense. And Tillman, he's a big body you can throw at a center that can like be more physical with them. So I love what I'm seeing from the bench. Just the team in general, the vibes are great. Everything's looking good right now. What about you, Jason?
So, the team's looking great right now. I don't really have any complaints. I know in a second we're going to kind of turn back the week a little bit. We're going to look at the Cavs game, and the Nuggets. But right now they're playing really well. So speaking of the Cavs and the Nuggets, obviously the Celtics kind of fell apart a tad bit. I know we're going back a little bit, but they lost 105-104. It was a Dean Wade legacy fourth quarter from him. I don't think I've ever seen somebody like that do this to the Celtics. I believe, if I'm correct, he outscored the whole Celtics team in the fourth quarter to be able to have that comeback happen. I mean, things happen, right? He's obviously, Dean Wade. I think he went 5 for 8 that quarter in the from the 3-point line. It's not really ever going to happen again for him, probably. But people after that game were saying, "Oh, here we go. The Celtics can't close. They can't close on an easy team." I can't think of off the top of my head if any of the starting 6 or starting 5 were playing that game or were they out. But it just, I don't know. Like, I guess in the whole grand scheme of things, it could possibly maybe worry you. If they were on the road in Cleveland, they probably weren't really up for that game anyway. I'm not going to take a whole bunch out of it. What about you?
I mean, shit happens, like we had just won 11 straight. We're up 22 in the fourth quarter. You had Denver as the next game. I'm sure their heads went to that. I'm sure they took their foot off the gas, and then Cleveland just couldn't miss. And that's what it really came down to. But we missed, if you look at the shot charts, we missed everything, and they couldn't miss anything. And it literally took all of that, and we still had a shot to win the game at the end, which should have been a foul that got overturned. So it's like it takes all of that for us to lose to a team that's a half game back of the second seed right now. Like, if we get Cleveland in a playoff series, I think they'd be lucky to win a game. Like, I get it, Donovan Mitchell didn't play for them, but, like, we had played him twice earlier in the year and beat him with Donovan Mitchell. And a playoff setting is different. D. Wade's not doing that to us in the playoffs. Like, I get it, like, we've had instances like that against other teams, particularly the Heat, where you'll get a role player, that's not a big scorer that goes off against us. Like, it's, the game, like, it's just a rarity, and it seems to always happen against us. But I'm not really concerned. I mean, like, they have to talk about something with the Celtics. Every time the Celtics lose, it happens so few and far between that everyone has to get all their takes out then because they don't know when it will happen again. So, the Celtics have lost 2 games in the last 6+ weeks. 2 games. And, after the second loss, it's the playoffs, as the Celtics still have playoff hope. Like, it's insane. But when the Bucks lose and get blown out by the 7th seed, the 8th seed, and the 10th seed in the West, nothing. They're still figuring out their chemistry. In the year 2024, Middleton wasn't there, so it doesn't count. Like stuff like that. Like, we don't get the same grace. Even if Porzingis doesn't play, it doesn't matter. But just we've been able to bounce back from that. The 2 Phoenix wins, and then Portland, Utah on a back-to-back, and then the second one missing JB. Like, they haven't taken their foot off the gas. Sorry to break it to you if you're watching this show. They're probably going to lose another game during the regular season. They're probably going to lose more than one in the playoffs. Like, the world is not ending every single time. I know Kendrick Perkins, Colin Cowherd, ESPN, every Celtics loss counts for more than one. And the second they lose a game in the playoffs, whether it's, a game in the first round, the second round, whatever it is, every take is going to be, here we go again, insert the other team's name in the minimum amount of games possible for them to win the series. But we're not going to go 16-0 in the playoffs, but I feel like this team is resilient. The losses like this, they hurt during the season, but you're so far ahead, and I think it's going to help them learn from those situations. The only thing I would like to say, besides the anomaly of, like, we're missing every shot, they're making every shot, is, sometimes it does get stagnant, and I would like, at the end of games, if you're tied, okay, fine, you can take it down to the last second, but, like, a game where you're trailing, like, don't get the ball at 19 seconds and wait till 4 or 5 seconds to even start the offense, Like, have, set some screens, have, the ball moving around. Like, okay, I don't mind Tatum taking the last shot, and it's not like he can't hit that shot, but it's just like the overall action sometimes a little frustrating. If he hits the shot, we're having a different conversation. If they uphold that call, he makes those free throws, we're having a different conversation. But in a playoff setting, they're talking about the close games. I don't feel like we'll be in a lot of them, like, especially in, like, the first round, unless it's the Heat. But anybody else, like, we get Indiana, we get Chicago, we get Atlanta, whoever it is, I don't think it'll be a lot of close games. So, inevitably there will be, but we have so many scoring options. I feel like Porzingis needs to be a big part of all these possessions because besides the fact that he can't guard him, he can see everybody can shoot everybody, he can find the open player, and you have to respect him. Like, you can't double Tatum with Porzingis and Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Drew Holiday on the floor. There's a mismatch somewhere. There's an open player somewhere. I trust everybody to hit shots. So
now you say, all those people on the floor in, like, that kind of situation. But I think every team and everybody in the arena knows that ball's going to Tatum no matter how many people he has on them. So that's kind of the thing where I would like to see them grow. And like, yes, Tatum in theory should be taking the final shot. And I know we talked a bit about this, I believe, one of the very first episodes we did, because we were talking about the Nuggets and that final shot they did against the Nuggets the first time around when they came to Boston. I would like to see maybe somebody else. I like if Tatum is double covered, he shouldn't be forcing off a fadeaway or a step back three for a final shot. If JB has a one-on-one matchup, or KP if it's a mismatch, or if White is, sharp cutting to the basket or something, that we can get a true good look at, I would much rather have that than Tatum trying to force a shot every single time when he's triple, double covered, just to, show something different. I feel like it's the same thing. It's a Tatum step back jumper, mid-range or 3-point shot. Like, get some more variety in a way that you can create more offense in those final seconds. But I'm not take that game at all. It's the Cavs. They're probably looking towards the Nuggets, which they should have to a degree. I mean, Nuggets got them the first time. They needed to bounce back. But, I'm not going to complain too much. And to the ESPN and all them people, like, every loss that the Celtics do is going to be magnified because they are looked at above everybody else. The Celtics, and I'm sure probably the Nuggets now, but before the Celtics played the Nuggets this last time, the Celtics were on a pedestal of their own. And they should. They're 48, and they were probably 48-13 at the time, or 48-12 before these last two losses. So any loss they do or any bad thing they do is going to be talked about because it's going to get ratings and it's going to get people going because they don't want to see Boston win. I mean, that's just a known thing. People hate on Boston. If the Celtics give them any little thing to nitpick, it's going to be a talking point. But that's just the nature of the beast, and the Celtics are just going to have to, do their part to make sure they finish it this time in the finals if they get there or whatnot. But here nor there. So we're going to move to the Nuggets game. This game was talked about a ton. If you watch ESPN, if you watch Fox, you listen to 98.5, wherever you get your sports, this game was talked about a ton because the Celtics did lose 115-109 to the Nuggets. It was a great game. But the main talking point was how bad Jason Tatum played. He went 2 for 5 from the 3-point line, 5 for 13 the whole game, only scored 15 points, but Jaylen Brown had an absolute monster game, only 2 for 7 from the 3-point line, but he was 16 for 29, finished 41. Now, people are going to say the Nuggets own Jason Tatum. The Nuggets know how to limit Jason Tatum from scoring. I'm going to say he was just off that night. I'm not like, I can't keep looking too much into these solo before. Like, Jason Tatum cannot score 40 and everybody else not have a good game. They shared the bar. It was Jaylen Brown's night. Like, yes, losing to the Nuggets is bad because it's going to create this narrative that the Nuggets are going to own the Celtics and Celtics can't figure out a way to beat the Nuggets. But, I just want to hear your thoughts about this game and what you took away.
So in the two losses to the Nuggets this year, one of them, we were ahead with, in the final minutes, and we had a shot with a few seconds left to either tie or win the game. In the second game, we had the ball on a fast breakdown too, with a chance to tie it, and then, you get it out to Tatum for a wide open look from 3. That has nothing to do with the Nuggets defense. That was just an off night from Tatum. Normally, I'd say he hits that shot. Then they'd be out by 1 with like 30 seconds left. So the narrative that they own us, I think, is false. Yeah, they do a lot to limit Tatum. A lot of that's his own too. Like, when he has those games where he's, being well covered and he's not hitting his shots, I think he gets in his head a little bit and he's more passive. I mean, Jaylen Brown had a great game. The only knock you can have on him is all the missed free throws. He missed 7 free throws in that game. He missed 7 free throws. Tatum had an off night, and they still had a shot with 30 seconds left to take a lead. So if it takes all of that for the Celtics to lose a game, I mean, some of that feels like an anomaly, They would also have home court in that series if Denver is the opponent. And I want to say, I'm not, counting the chickens before they hatch. I want to say our ride through the East will be easier than the Nuggets through the West. The Nuggets are going to have some much rougher series, harder competition, more physical. They may be more worn out. And that was a big part that a lot of people don't realize in the finals 2 years ago, is we let series extend much longer than they needed to. We went through 2 7-game series in the Eastern Conference semis and the Eastern Conference finals that were just grueling, and the physical toll it took on us as well as the emotional toll Whereas Golden State were playing injured teams the whole time. They didn't have a lot of competition. So when it got to the nitty gritty of that series, we were worn out, we were spent, we were banged up, and Golden State was just hitting their stride. So that could be a big thing, a big takeaway is to not play with our food this year, finish series when we can. Like last year, we dicked around with Atlanta. That series went to 6 and it almost went to 7. Like that had no business. Like we got down 3-2 to Philly, came back to win that. Like went down 3-0 to Miami, spent all that, energy. And yeah, like they hurt Tatum on the first play of game 7. If he doesn't get hurt, I still believe they win. But it's like they put themselves in that 3-0 hole, by like playing around. Like, I don't think they're going to do that this year. And I want to think they're going to take everybody seriously. And that's what right now, respecting their opponents. Like, there's a lot of games. Like, I think last year, that back-to-back Portland-Houston come at the end of a road Portland-Utah. At the end of a road trip, I think they lose one of those games. Like, there's so many instances this season where they take their foot off the gas. Like, yeah, it bit us in the butt the other night in Cleveland. But more often than not, they've handled their business this year. So I feel really good about where we're at. You're not going to win every game. But, it's a strong showing for them so far. We have a very light part of our schedule down the stretch, the part that Milwaukee and Philly were able to pad their record earlier in the year so that they, looked like they were on par with us while we had a harder schedule. And they had the whole, we all play the same team, stop bitching type mentality. And like, okay, look at Milwaukee's schedule this month. Like, yeah, they're in second right now, but they still have a brutal rest of this month where, we can pretty much like coast the rest of the way. We have Milwaukee next week. But other than that, like there's not a lot of big games left. It's just, repetitions, rest, good habits, and just get ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, we don't really have a lot of high profile games left, right? We probably have the Knicks coming up in April, and then obviously the Bucks in a week. But
I don't think we're gonna play anybody the last few games. The Knicks game at the end, the OKC game, and Milwaukee game. They're like 3 of our last 6 games. I don't think we're gonna play all of our team those games. I think the Milwaukee game next week might be our last showing of like everybody.
Like yeah. You know what? That makes sense because we play the Knicks April 11th, and then the final 2 games it's Hornets and Wizards, which is kind of crazy. That'd be probably
the Grant Williams return.
The Grant Williams game. But yeah, I mean, it's so tough to sit here and nitpick them all the time because like. They're clearly the best team in the NBA right now. Even losing to Denver twice. I mean, a ball goes their way in either one of those games, and we could be sitting here them being 2-0 against the Nuggets either way. It's not like they got blown out or anything like Chuck likes to say. 2 close games that just didn't go our way in the end. And, the Nuggets, I think you said they're going to have an easier time going through the West. I think the injury to Karl Anthony Towns tearing his meniscus or MCL, I thought Minnesota would be their toughest matchup just because they have a lot of size over in Minnesota. When you look at the West and how it's shaped up, do you really think OKC is going to give Denver some issues? Or who else is? There was some other team that was up top. Oh, like the Kings. Like, I don't know. I just
Pelicans, I trust the teams in the play-in. In a playoff setting, a lot more than the top of the West, outside of Denver and the Clippers, maybe. It wouldn't surprise me at all if OKC loses to Golden State or the Lakers in the first round. Like those teams, they have all the experience, the veterans. Like OKC is a young up and coming team, and on any given night in the regular season, like they can be the better team in a playoff series. If you ask me to predict if they played the Lakers or the Warriors, like I might even pick either one of those teams. Like I think the only true test to the Nuggets would be the Clippers if they're healthy. Maybe the Suns. I just don't see them beating them 4 times. And then Minnesota, if they're healthy. Karl Anthony Towns should be back in the playoffs. I don't know when. I don't know what he's going to look like. I'm still taking Denver over the field, but I just think their path's going to be a little bit more challenging than the Celtics.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he will be back. I just, again, like you said, I don't know his timetable. But I do want to move to a topic that was a little bit discussed on Twitter, mainly, not much in the mainstream sports, is Jaylen Brown, if Jaylen Brown is the primary scorer on this team and Tatum is sort of not like a backseat, but more of like the second option, do you think that is a recipe for success for the Celtics?
No. Like, I think Tatum's a better playmaker, and I trust him as a distributor more and honestly to handle the ball well. I mean, they both have turnover issues. I trust Tatum to make the better reads and plays. Plus, he's tall, he's bigger, like he's wider. I trust him more to be the scoring option. but I don't think we necessarily need this designation. Like, these aren't kids anymore, you know. They've been through the fire. Like, this team is very mature. They know how to play together. Like, I don't think like, okay, I'm number one, you're number two, you're number three. Like, they don't need that, you know. It can be anybody in any given night. I think the consensus is Tatum, you know, he's the guy, he's the number one. But it's like, because of that, it doesn't have to always be him having the most shots. It doesn't have to always be him with the ball at the end, you know. Like, I think these players are all at their points in their career, especially the guys we brought in, Porzingis and Drew Holiday, where it's about what's best for the team. And so, yeah, that night in Denver, Jaylen Brown being the big time option that game was what's best for the team, because he can get hot in a minute. He scores a lot of easy buckets. Like, yeah, he's not the best 3-point shooter, but if you leave him open, like the Golden State game, he can hit him. So yeah. I don't think we need that designation. I think, you know, they play well together, despite what the media said trying to break them up for years. It was, can they play together? And now it's clear that they can. Well, it's like, okay, well, who should be the number one? It's like, what are we doing, you know? Especially if it's Celtics fans doing that. Like, it's a pointless conversation. I know Philger and Maz can get a show out of that, but it doesn't really matter as long as we're winning.
So this conversation came up because Jaylen Brown liked the tweet on Twitter saying if he had his own team or he was scoring 30 a night, he'd be an all-star, or he'd be.
My boy GRD put that out.
Yeah, so it was something that was floating on Twitter, so that kind of got everybody talking, and you know, it just was an interesting thing because it was like, again, we've talked about this team numerous times, so I'm not going to keep saying it, but we keep, you know, for the last time, any one of these players, anyone in the starting five can go off and score 30, and it doesn't have to be Tatum every night. Like, this isn't, you know, rec church league. This isn't high school when it's, you know, normally one kid that's dominating the floor. This is just, it's pros. They're all capable of scoring. It doesn't have to be Tatum. This isn't like the Lakers where LeBron and AD have to dominate and everybody else is, you know, backpacked. You know, I mean, I don't understand. Sometimes it's very frustrating to see, like, oh, Tatum didn't score 30, he must suck. You know, I mean, he's human. He's gonna have an off night. He's not gonna score 30 every night, and that's what these people, you know, they don't understand is
he doesn't need to.
No,
I'm sure Jaylen, like, you put Jaylen on a team that's you put Jaylen on, you know, I don't even want to say a team like Toronto or like a team that's, you know, further down in the standings where he's going to be the number one scoring guy. I'm sure he would score 30 points a game. I'm sure he would be in MVP conversations. He's that gifted of a scorer. He doesn't have to do that here, you know, and they're at their point in their career where it's like, it's not about individual accolades. They have a common goal of winning the championship. They've all been very vocal throughout the season and for a while in saying that is the goal. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure he liked that as a point of like a respect thing to him. But, you know, how people are going to say that is like, oh, well, you know, he wants to be the number one guy. He doesn't want to be in Tatum's shadow. This really means he wants out of here. Yeah. People are going to spin their narratives, but I think everybody knows their role on this team and they're succeeding in it.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much said it best yourself. I mean, it's so silly. Honestly, it's getting so like nauseating too to see it all the time on Twitter. Oh, Tatum scores 16 points. He sucks. No more MVP. You know, Jaylen Brown's better. And then, you know, but Brown, I will admit though, Brown liking this stuff doesn't help either because he's the one that like sort of like starts this to a degree because, you know, fans are always going to find stuff that he likes, especially. This has been going down for like forever. So just like maybe he should just lay off those two liking those tweets, maybe, if that'd be best. But
take all of them off social media for the playoffs.
Oh, I know, right? Just keep them all
like
off.
LeBron, 0 dark 30 or whatever.
No, I know. So rest versus Russ down the stretch. Obviously, we've talked about their schedule being easy. KP has already started this rest narrative to a degree, we think. Do you think a guy like Jason Tatum and Derek White, because those two are the ones that really I haven't really seen taking much of a rest. Drew was off a couple nights ago, and then KP was off, and then Brown has been off a couple of games here and there. Do you think those two should really think about taking some games off down the stretch?
Should they? Absolutely. Will they? I don't know. I mean, I think at some point they're going to there's no way Tatum's playing all the rest of the games this season. Like, I know he would like to, you know, he made his thing before the season. It's like, you know, I only go to Charlotte, you know, once or twice a year. Like, I know it's a Monday night in January, but, you know, there's people they've waited all year and they were paying that money to see me. And I know he has that mindset, but you got to think of the bigger picture. Like, he's been fatigued at some of the end of these playoffs, and I know banged up and injured as well, but you know, you're increasing the likelihood of something happening when you play. And I'm not saying, you know, just shelf him like the whole team. Like you actually could. You could set our starting 5 and Al the rest of the year. They'll still clinch the 1 seed because they're that close to it. But that's not the point. Like I think it's a rest versus rust thing. Like they'll have a few games where they're going to sit a lot of players. And I think they'll have other ones where it's like, okay, you're going to play X amount of minutes tonight, so we're going to start building it up. But they're going to have more time to practice too. It's like before the season, they barely played in the preseason, but you had all the practices. They look ready to go on night 1 against the Knicks, you know? Like they came out of the gate firing. They started off 5-0, so I'm not worried about Tatum. You give him a few nights off, that like, oh, he's going to be rusty for the playoffs. Like, you know, God willing, we're going to have an opponent in the first round that we can go through the motions against and win. You know, hopefully they'll just, you know, take it to them and just end the series when they should. But I would make sure, I think Brad will get involved. I think it's discussed behind the scenes what their game plan is, and I think they have one for each player. With Porzingis, it's more rest. It's rest.
Yeah.
It's, you know, decreasing the likelihood of injury, especially against certain teams that are going to be more physical when you don't need to, you know. Like I'm not playing Porzingis against the Knicks, and especially if like Randall and Mitchell Robinson and OG Anunoby are back. Like, thank God we don't play the Heat again this regular season. You know, that's another injury waiting to happen. So Porzingis, yes. Drew Holiday and Al. I mean, Al's already not playing on the second end of back-to-backs. They're going to get additional. Every time Al's on the injury report, it's a different injury, which is funny. I think it was toe this time. One time it was like left neck. And it's crazy how some people, they'll look at this and they'll see, you know, Porzingis out hamstring, you know, and so it begins. Like they don't understand the context. They just, people on Twitter are genuinely terrible. Like they troll to troll, and they have no like concept for reality. They're just like, oh, well, hamstring, that means he must have a really hurt hamstring, and they start fucking diagnosing on WebMD like how long a hamstring injury takes. Where in reality, he's fine. He could play if you know he needed to. He's just like, okay, you know, they're playing fucking Utah on the second night of a back-to-back after they played less than 24 hours before. Like, yeah, he's not going to play. Like, it's not a big deal. I'm sure they have a plan for him. Like, it's not going to be him missing the rest of the regular season. But, you know, I guess to be seen, to be determined what they're going to actually do.
I think this is where Brad in the front office really needs to sit Tatum down and be like, listen, you don't need to play on the second night of a back-to-back with a Portland Utah game. Like he should have been out Portland. Brown was out against the Jazz, and it should have been, you know, one of them plays one night, the other plays the other night. I don't need to see Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like they have Washington and I think Detroit is coming up. Like one's away, one's home. Like Tatum's not on anywhere close to, you know, missing the 17-game threshold of not being eligible for all NBA like honors. Like I understood if he had missed like 14 and like, oh shit, he can only miss like 2 or 3 more and he won't be eligible. And like I know that stuff matters to him. So it's like if he's at that point, okay, I understand it a little bit more. But like he's only missed 3 games all year. We only have 16 left. He would have to miss like 14 of those 16 to not be eligible. So like I think he needs to take 3 or 4 games off down the stretch. I understand his theory, like, you know, people pay to see me. They should probably be home games then, if that's the case. Like this back-to-back coming up with Washington and Detroit, sit one of them. Because we have a Milwaukee game on Wednesday that I'm sure they all care about. So that's the game he's going to play. So do you want to play him the front end of the back-to-back and then sit him in Washington? I mean, Washington's a dog shit team. Like maybe you sit him. Maybe Porzingis wants to play that game because, you know, he's from, like, not from Washington, but he was on the Wizards last year. So maybe, you know, you sit him the first end of the back-to-back. And you have Tatum play, and then you have Porzingis and like Brown play the next night. You have Drew take the first night off. Like you can stagger it. I'm sure there's a plan in place more than we know. So I think they know what they're doing. I trust Brad and Joe and the whole coaching staff to make the right decisions here.
Yeah, I mean, you just hope that, you know, they're not letting Tatum influence, you know, when he plays and if he can play all the games. Like, and I think it's funny too. Tatum's not dealing with that wrist injury that we heard about at the beginning of the year, is he? He's not been. The wrist isn't a thing anymore.
I mean, every once in a while you'll see him shaking his hand or whatever. I mean, I'm sure it's not 100%, but like if you watch the finals, like you could tell he was clearly compromised.
Yeah.
And then last year, it looked like he had re-aggravated it, and there was a talk, well, will he get surgery in the offseason? And then you just didn't hear about anything.
Yeah.
So like he either did the quietest surgery ever, or he didn't get it. So I mean, I think this is something that if it genuinely is bothering him, then regardless of how the season ends, he should just take care of it. Because like long term, why deal with something you don't have to, especially when that's not like a major operation, you know? And it's not something that like if you get it done, a month after the season ends, you'll be back for training camp easily. It's not like he broke anything. So I would take care of that. I mean, that's a conversation for the future. I don't think it's like, I'm sure it bothers him. I don't think it's at the point it was in the past. So it's all about mitigating risk and, pick, okay, this is the night you're going to play. This is the night you're not going to play. Like, yeah, if you're actually dealing with something, don't play.
Yeah.
I get it. You want to play. We all know they're not going to play the last game of the season. But other than that, just have a game plan in place, which, like we said, I'm sure they already have.
Yeah, I mean, I was just asking just because I feel like if he was dealing with something or he was questionable or whatnot, just sit him for as much as you feel like you can without the NBA looking at it and be like, oh, you're resting your super. Like, you can't do that. You know what I'm saying? So, but in the end, obviously they know, everybody's injury status more than we do. We're just trying to make sure that all of them are rested and well prepared for this hopefully long and successful playoff run, because that's ultimately what matters, not playing a back-to-back for Detroit and Washington, which we could give two shits about. To be honest, no disrespect to Washington and Detroit, but it's not what we're looking forward to. But
unless they lose, and then it's a big deal. It means they don't have playoff hopes. So
if we lose with Cornette and Pritchard starting, it's going to be a big issue.
Yeah, meanwhile, the Heat lost to the Wizards the other night. So, I mean, you don't hear that much about it, and they've lost four straight. But
the reason why the Heat probably don't get that much crap is because people know that they're not really a great team on paper. That's why, like if we lost it would be because we got the best starting five in the league, probably best 6-man rotation in the league. So if we lose to a low superior team, it's always just going to get more publicity. I think the Heat are fighting for their lives in the play-in right now. Like, that's
meanwhile, if you ask a Heat fan, they'll take Jimmy over Tatum. They'll take Bam over JB. They'll take Hero over Porzingis. Like, if you start going down individual, they'll take each player they have over the Celtics while calling the Celtics team a super team. Like, it's crazy. But meanwhile, they're sitting in the play-in, but they're like, we don't care about the regular season. They really think the players just don't care about the regular season. They're like, okay, good, the 8th seed, we got them right where we want them. Like, what they conveniently leave out, since they love talking about the past, they started right at 2023. 2022, when they lost to us, that doesn't count. Also, what doesn't count is that they lost their first play-in game last year at home. They then were down to Chicago with 2 minutes left in the second playoff game. They were really close to getting eliminated in the play-in tournament. They then add nobody to the team prior to Rozier this season, are right back in the play-in right now. They don't look good, and it's like, yeah, we're good. We got them right where we want them. Like, I just don't understand. Like, it'd be frustrating to be a fan of that team, but we'll see. We'll see him when we see him, if we see him.
Yeah. So, I mean, just looking at the road ahead, we've been talking about it. So we already know we got the Wizards and Pistons back-to-back coming up. Then we have Milwaukee on Wednesday, big game, 7:30 ESPN. And then we have another back-to-back of Pistons Bulls to round out the week. Again, Bulls are a 500-ish team. Kobe White is out with the hip injury. We won't know if he'll be playing that game, but still, Bulls aren't a bad opponent. They're middle of the road, so I would expect probably everyone to play in that game. It's in Chicago, so I'd assume, they'd be playing that game, or maybe Al or whatnot. You know the drill. Someone will probably not be playing, but you probably see most of the regulars. So that's pretty much the week coming up. Not really much to get excited for besides the Bucks on Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, I just, right now we're at the point. I mean, you have the countdowns. They clinched the playoffs last night. The magic number is 7 to clinch the number 1 seed. I think it's like 10 or 12 to clinch the 1 seed overall. And that's over Oklahoma City, who I don't think we'll ever see anyways. So look at where Denver's at, whoever the second team is right now over there. So in the end, even if they went 500 the rest of the way, they're still going to end up with the best record in the NBA. So like I said, the priority is the right habits, rest, getting recovered any ailments you may have, going into the playoffs at full strength, full focus for the season that really matters. So, just enjoy the games. I would say stress-free. Like we said, any loss they have going forward, which I'm assuming they're not going to win all 16 games the rest of the stretch, even with dog shit teams. It doesn't matter. So Celtics fans, take a deep breath if they lose a game. Other fans of other teams, it doesn't mean as much as you think it does. So yeah, get your happy tweets out for the loss to Charlotte in the second to last game of the year with 4 of the 5 starters sitting. But it really doesn't matter. All that matters right now is April 21st, the first playoff game in the Garden.
Yep. I agree. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Dynasty Proud. You can catch us on X at Dynasty Proud 18 and then on YouTube at BSEN_617 for the latest episodes and tweets and all that good stuff. Alex, you got any last minute thoughts?
No, this is just a joy to watch this team. I just can't wait to the playoffs. We got a month to go. We've already clinched the playoffs. So, like I said, just keep it going. Rest the guys you have to rest. Stack up the W's when we can, and just looking ahead to the real season.
Yeah. So I got nothing else to say. Go Celtics. We'll see you guys in